Hi, my name is Neil Sherman. I work for PAT, usually as a cameraman, but in some cases as an interviewer. And today I'm here to interview Gary Gulman, a nationally recognized comedian who has really made quite the name for himself around the entire country and especially back here in Peabody, his hometown where he grew up. So thank you very much for coming, Gary.
Thanks for having me, Neil. Great intro.
Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I grew up in West Peabody.
West Peabody, okay.
I attended the West Memorial School,
Okay.
and then I went to the Higgins Middle School. But at the time, the Higgins was not the fancy institution that it is now.
Oh, yes.
The Higgins was a nightmare. It was prison-like when I went there. It was this awful building, and we were right next to the vocational school, which were kids in their early 30s, and they would terrorize us during gym class. And yeah, it was much different. And then I came to the high school, and then I went to Boston College, and then I became an accountant, and then I became a stand-up comedian. And then when I was around 29, I started getting on television shows and doing stand-up on TV. And so I've made my living as a stand-up since December 24th, 1998. The last day job I had was as a substitute teacher in this high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So does that date have any specific significance?
Yeah, it's the last time I had a real job.
Oh.
Yeah.
What, you don't consider stand-up comedian a real job?
No, because there are no benefits. There's no health insurance. I don't have to punch a clock, and I'm my own boss. So I don't really consider it a job. It's to rip a cliche. It's a labor of love. I love doing it. I always look forward to doing it. So you're an actor. You know what it feels like to get the applause and the laughter.
It's all worth it at the end.
Yes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Most definitely.
Yes.
How often do you come back to Peabody?
Pretty frequently. My mom still lives here, and I just mostly live in New York. A friend of mine, we've been friends since 5th grade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So his mom still lives in the same house that he grew up in. My mom still lives in the same house, so it's pretty frequent, and I love coming back here. It's very, very comforting, and it's such a great, warm community. I really like it.
Peabody's always our homes, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Were you considered like the jokester, class clown, funny kid in class?
Yeah, but all my friends were pretty funny. We loved to laugh and make each other laugh, so we were always joking around and repeating jokes we saw on television or making up our own or making fun of each other, which was probably too cruel. But the common thing to do was to mock each other's shortcomings,
Okay.
which was always good sport. And but I wouldn't say that I stood out as a class clown or anything like that. I think I was pretty witty. I was quick-witted, and I would say little comments and sarcastic remarks, but by no means was I the life of the party or anything like that. I think more than anyone else, I really appreciated stand-up comedy in particular and jokes. And I used to make my own little audio cassette tapes of me, mostly just doing impressions of Saturday Night Live characters and other movie characters, and so that was sort of my earliest endeavor with comedy, was making these little tapes, and I would let my friends listen to them and they would pass them around. I like to think that people thought I was funny, but I wasn't by any means disruptive or a class clown to any large degree.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, do you still have those tapes?
No.
I was going to say you should just take them out and listen to them every once in a while.
That would be really cool. Although I know, and I remember what I was doing on the tapes, and it was pretty weak material. It wasn't very.
Okay.
It wasn't very impressive.
Now.
No, I couldn't do it now. It might be nostalgic and sentimental, but the quality was very low, very low.
Okay. I see.
But it was entertaining to the 16-year-old versions of myself. Yeah.
So you said you went to Boston College, but
Yes.
what did you major in there?
I majored in accounting.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I have a practical side that I luckily abandoned after college. For the most part, I abandoned it because stand-up comedy is not a very practical profession. It's very difficult and it's very competitive, and there are ups and downs. My thinking and philosophy when I was of college age was I should try to get a good job after college, and I did that for about a year and a half. But I remember like maybe 3 weeks in, opening up the book to study for the CPA exam, which is this big exam for accountants. It's like the bar exam, but for accountants. And I did like maybe one practice test, and I said, this is not for me. I'm going to put all my energy into stand-up comedy, and that's basically what I've done since then. And luckily it paid off. But I can imagine even if it didn't, I would have continued to be a substitute teacher and maybe gotten a teaching degree or something that I felt was more ethical than public accounting, and more creative and more community oriented than public accounting. I probably would have done something like that, and then done stand-up on weekends and at night, because it's really gratifying to make strangers laugh.
How long were you a substitute teacher here?
At least 2 years, and that was a great job, and the timing was perfect because a lot of my teachers that I had in high school were still teaching here, so I got to see them on the other side of the desk, and I got to spend time with them in the teachers' lounge. Do they still have teachers' lounges upstairs?
I think so. We're never allowed.
Yeah, you're never allowed in there
but
because of all the gambling and smoking that goes on in there.
Absolutely, yeah.
But
just radiates.
yes. It was like a nightclub in there. But that was very interesting, and I got to know them a little better, and they were so supportive and encouraging of my stand-up career, when clearly I was not doing well, because I needed to have this day job that paid about $35 a day in order to barely make ends meet. So that was, but I look back on that period fondly. I really enjoyed the students and the other teachers. So it was a great job for me. I loved it. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you probably get this question plenty, but how did you start up? How did you go from just being a substitute teacher, just doing your own comedy tapes as a teenager? How did you go from there to here?
Well, the first step was to write down a bunch of jokes and memorize them. And then I called a comedy club in Boston that was really booming at the time. But when I was in high school, I used to go there with some friends, and then I found out that they had an open mic show. And I called up, and they told me if I brought a few friends, they would put me on stage for 5 minutes. And so I got my friends, and they had to pay to get in. And then I went on for 5 minutes, and it went pretty well. The jokes, looking back, were so horrible and not funny at all, but the audience really liked them, and I really had a great time. So from that night forward, and that's 25 years ago this October, most of my energy has been spent trying to either write jokes or get on stage to perform them. That's my life. I've done some other things, but the bulk of my life over the past 25 years, career-wise, has been stand-up comedy. And even though I had to do the accounting job that was 9 to 5, and I had other 9 to 5 jobs, but I worked as a waiter and as a bouncer at a bar, and as a barista at Starbucks, and at Peabody Veterans Memorial High School as a substitute teacher. I was the building sub, so I would go in every day. It was a good job if you could get it. It was reliable work. And at night I would do the shows, and then I would wake up the next morning and teach. And I remember a lot of the classes I would tell them if they got their work done that the teacher had assigned, I would do some stand-up at the end of the class. So that usually worked, and it was also really helpful to me to be able to work out the jokes in front of a live audience. Yeah.
So what's your method for writing jokes? Do you just come up with it as you go? Do you improvise? Do you just think of a funny word and then go off that? How do you do it?
It's sort of a combination. So early on, I would write the jokes out word for word and then perform them. I would write them out, memorize them, then perform them, and I would pretty much do it identically every time. But then as I got more experienced, I was able to improvise on stage and add some things So in order to make that work, I needed to record all my sets. At first on a old tape recorder, and now on my phone, so that I could listen to the things that I'd improvised and try to incorporate them into the next show that I did, and I would write it down and then memorize that addition. So basically that's my method, to come up with an idea, and sometimes it's a word, sometimes it's a sentence, sometimes I'll sit down and write out a paragraph that'll become the jokes, and then I will try to memorize that and go on stage and then elaborate and improvise. But I always make sure to record it and then write it down, and that's sort of my process, and it's enabled me to do the style of comedy that I've sort of grown into, which is to do these really long stories. So my most famous joke is about the men and one woman who abbreviated the states for the post office. The states had different length abbreviations, and then when I was a little kid, they changed them to 2-letter abbreviations, and so I made up this whole fake story about how they did it, and it just, I worked on it for years and would add things here and there, and it didn't really come together, and nobody really understood it or laughed or was moved by it. But all the work I had put into it all over the years sort of came together in 2016, and I did the joke on Conan, and like 10 million people viewed it on Facebook and YouTube. So that's like my most well-known joke. But it's also a great example of the process that I use, which is to build on small things and make them longer. So that's my process, which is I take way too long to describe it.
No, it makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just, it's tough to come up with things and improvise right off the
Yeah.
top of your head.
Do you have any interest in stand-up?
Stand-up? I mean, personally, I would love to, but
Yeah.
I know it takes a lot more than
No, all it takes is that you would love to. That's all I had. I had no discernible talent, and I didn't participate in any of the high school plays. So you're way ahead of me, and the fact that you were so funny and so confident and comfortable and had such stage presence, I think you could do anything you wanted in the theater realm.
Well,
Neil,
much appreciated. Thank you, Gary.
I mean it, Neil. I was so impressed. Yeah.
So I have seen on TV many times that you are on basically every night show, on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
Was there any favorite host that you ever met or show that you did?
I think my first national TV appearance was on The Tonight Show when it was hosted by Jay Leno. Can you remember him?
I do remember him.
Okay, so he was. It's a spot on impression, Neil.
Well, thank you.
You'll probably hear from him now that you've mocked. I don't think he watches Peabody.tv, but he should if he's doing his homework. So that was really neat because I had actually grown up watching him on television, and I had gone to see him at the North Shore Music Theater with my father for my 16th birthday, which is one of my all-time most cherished memories. And so I did the show, and it went well, and I called my mom afterwards, and he got on the phone with her, which blew her away, and it was just such a nice experience. He was so nice, and he sat with me in the dressing room, and he was a really generous and kind and funny guy, and that was really, really nice. But all the other TV appearances have been great. One I got to do with somebody else who I'd grown up watching, this man named David Brenner, who's passed away, but he was sort of one of the originators of the Did You Ever Notice observational comedy that Seinfeld made so famous. So that was really neat. But every single time I do TV, it's like it's my birthday. I get presents, and people call me and text me and send me emails and Facebook messages, and it's a great feeling. I don't get any more famous from doing the TV shows. It's not like that anymore, but I get an extra birthday, which makes me very happy because I love my birthday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, who doesn't? Getting
Of course. Yeah.
Reason?
It's awesome.
So we of course know about your job itself as a stand-up comedian, going on shows, doing shows otherwise, and just being all around hilarious. But How do you take care of the business part of it?
Oh man,
Which is obviously the more fun part of it.
Yeah, the business part involves getting the check after the show, making sure I keep it in my wallet, and then scanning it for my records, and then bringing it to the bank. And then for a week every April, I write down all my expenses and all that, and do my taxes. And that is the extent of my business involvement with my business. Everything else from booking shows and television appearances and traveling and all that is taken care of by my agent and managers. So they take offers from theaters and comedy clubs, and they present them to me and say, do you want to do this? We think you should, or we think you should pass on this. And then I say yes or no, and I mark it down in my calendar. And I also do some work with a guy who manages my website and puts my dates up and sends out newsletters to people in the areas that I'm performing to try to get them to come to the shows. But I don't take as much care in my business as I should, and as some people do. I'm because of my traumatic experience in accounting. I think I'm averse to dealing with finances and money. So I don't do a lot of preparation and hard work with regards to my finances and everything. I sort of resent that aspect of my life. So it's a great question, but it's an opportunity for me to take a look at my failings as a businessman. Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, as a performer, then I kind of have my getting in-game rituals before shows and everything. And I'm sure, what kind of things do you do beforehand to get ready for a performance?
Yeah. A lot of times it's talking to the other comedians or the other people that work at the comedy club to sort of get my brain engaged and get my mouth going, so that's very helpful. I also have new jokes that I'm working on, and I've taken pictures of the notebook pages that I've written out the jokes on my phone, so I'll go over that, and I'll prepare a list of the new jokes that I want to perform, and I sneak that on a napkin and put it next to a bottle of water or a glass of water on the stool on stage so I can consult that. And then I sometimes say, if I'm really nervous, I say a prayer to thank my higher power for the opportunity and the talent and the fact that are you a Jewish man?
I am, yeah.
Oh, okay, all right. So you understand. I yes, I have this connection with God, and I thank Him. I mostly just thank Him and then ask Him. I thank Him for stand-up comedy because I think that was a nice touch. Creating that's very helpful, and I wouldn't have an outlet for my particular illness if it wasn't for stand-up comedy. So I thank Him for that, and then I ask Him to help me make the people forget about their problems while I'm on stage, and that's sort of the prayer, and then I go on stage, and mostly it goes really well. Yeah.
So it's just. So do you perform for yourself mainly or for the other people? Or is it just a big combination of everything?
Yeah, it's a combination. I think I perform for the audience with some boundaries and stipulations, and in that I probably could get a better response from the audience if I did sort of more common topics and things that people are used to hearing comedians talk about, and I think if I swore or talked about bodily functions more frequently, I think I could get a better response from the audience. So I'm not trying to be a clown just to amuse the people. I try to do it within certain parameters of my artistic interests and ethical concerns. And so I just try to be original and funny and a little bit silly, and I just want to be the comedian that I would have liked to have seen when I was your age. That I think was the goal, explicit and sort of subconsciously I wanted talk about things that I would enjoy hearing a comedian talking about now. But really, I fell in love with comedy when I was little. So I and those guys weren't writing for 6-year-olds, but it applied and it appealed to me. So they were doing something right, and I think there's part of me that tries to not necessarily write for 6-year-olds, but so that there's a broad audience of people who would enjoy it.
So in the car a lot with my father, I like to listen to Sirius Radio.
Sure.
And, a lot of the time we'll listen to the comedy channels, and a couple of times you've popped up on
cool.
there, and it's always
that's
fun
great.
to listen. But let me ask
that's
you,
so nice.
have you ever turned on the radio and heard yourself and thought, wow, I'm really proud of myself. This is really cool that I'm on here. Does that ever happen?
It's the thing with the radio now is it's much different than when I grew up. Had I been on the radio that I grew up with, which was not that many channels compared to what you have on Sirius, I think I would have been impressed with myself that I was on the radio. But now where there's so much streaming and Sirius, and there's a channel devoted to comedy, I'm not that impressed with myself. It is interesting, and it's happened a few times, and I'm like, oh, that's cool, and I get a penny or a nickel every time they play me, and it does add up. It's a good extra stream of income, but I don't get excited about hearing myself on Sirius Radio. There was a billboard in Boston advertising a show I did last year that I was excited to see. I thought that was really neat, and there's one near the North Shore Mall now that I heard about, but I haven't seen. But I think that's pretty neat. But I sort of have a habit of comparing myself to other comedians, and it's like, this is not a big deal for comedians to be on the radio, so it doesn't really impress me. But I am happy that you heard me with your father, that you know that I've attained a certain stature.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, isn't that the kind of stature you want?
Yes.
Like me to be listening?
Yes,
and
of course,
yeah.
Absolutely. I have so many people who come up to me after the shows and say, I love you on Sirius, and that makes me very happy. It's sort of a good advertisement for my shows.
When you come back home to Peabody, do you ever have people that are always really anxious to reconnect and say, hey, Gary, I really miss you. I haven't seen you in so long. I saw you on The Tonight Show, for example. I heard you on the radio.
Yeah.
Does that ever happen to you?
Yeah, certainly. And I'm very fortunate that I've kept in touch with most of the people that I've known throughout my life. And so one of my closest friends I've known since 5th grade, and another one from 6th grade, and he lives in New York, so we see each other a lot. And through Facebook, and the night before Thanksgiving, people get together. After high school, they get together at bars in Peabody and in the local area and reconnect and catch up and reunite. So I've always treasured my connections with people from my hometown, and it's good that I travel, and I've moved away, and I've lived in Los Angeles and New York, but I also really admire people who stuck around and get to have that experience, because community is so valuable and such an asset to your life. Yeah. So
I would assume that you're very proud to be from Peabody then.
I am very proud to be from Peabody. It's a great city. It's fairly diverse, and at least financially, I grew up pretty broke, but then there were other kids in the neighborhood who were probably upper middle class, and then there were some kids who were worse off or better off. So I think that's good to see and experience different perspectives and of ethnicity as well. So I think it's a nice blend of people here in Peabody, and I think that we have pretty decent values, and I think we really lucked out being in this community, and I really look back so fondly and sentimentally about my youth and my education here. Yeah.
So this entire interview, I've been very much hoping to hear a joke or to hear some sort of bit or anything. Is there any material that you want to show to us?
I don't know.
PAT viewers?
I don't know if I want to show any material during this. I will say that I'm looking forward to this show because I'll be able to make reference to the West Branch Library and to Giovanni's and Land and Sea and the bus ramp here at the high school.
The non-existent
yes,
bus ramp.
the non-existent bus ramp and other things that only will really understand and be able to laugh that much harder because we've all experienced it. So I don't really like to do jokes during interviews. It comes off corny or like I'm trying too hard, and if it falls flat, I'll be devastated. So I won't do that. But I'm really looking forward to this show, and I think it's for such a great cause. I think the health center is such a great endeavor, and I'm really proud that Peabody High School has made that happen, and I'm so excited that I get to contribute in a small way to its success. Yeah.
So that show that you were doing is on
April 26th.
April 26th?
Thursday,
You
April
beat me to it. I couldn't
26th.
even find it on the paper.
Yes, that's okay. Are you going to be able to go, Neil?
Yeah. With any luck, I'll definitely be there.
Okay, good. Maybe you can bring your dad.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, and it's to support the health center, of course.
Yes.
Is there any special connection that you have to the health center or someone from there?
Well,
Or-
yes. Allison Whedon Kilcoyne was a classmate of mine. We graduated together, so we've been friends since the Higgins,
Oh,
I think. We were in classes together. And she runs the health center, and she started it, and she contacted me earlier this year or maybe last year and had me visit and gave me a tour and introduced me to some of the people. And it's just such it's so helpful to so many kids, and it's something I wish had been here when I was a student. I really feel like I could have used counseling service and gotten a physical more frequently than I was. I probably only got one my entire high school career, probably. And I think I had to get one for sports, so maybe it was a quick physical by a team doctor or something like that. But it wasn't very thorough. So I think this is just a great program that I was thrilled to offer my support, and so luckily I'm able to do a comedy show to raise money, and I hope it sells out so that it'll be a success. And yeah.
Well, as corny as it sounds, laughter is the best medicine, so it'll certainly help.
Along with penicillin, I think penicillin
absolutely.
has been great for society.
Mm-hmm. Or matzo ball soup.
Matzo ball soup, yes, Neil. Yes. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Gary,
Oh,
for
my
being
man,
on here.
you were
Appreciate
great.
your time.
Great job.
Thanks.
And I
always gonna say
appreciate you.
fun,
I appreciate you wearing your dress sweatpants for the interview.
Why wouldn't I?
Yes.
Why wouldn't I get called to do an interview with Gary Gulman? Absolutely,
Yes,
dress my
I really
finest.
appreciate it, man.
All right, well,
thanks,
thanks.
buddy.
Much
All right.
appreciated. All right, thank you.